All Things Black with Garland and Calvin present Fanboys. Fanboys is a weekly breakdown of the sports world from a fan's perspective. Now, here are your hosts, Garland and Calvin.
All Things Black presents Fanboys.
Blugger, blugger, blugger.
I'm Calvin, and Mr. Cited Stevie Wonder over there playing the air piano is Garland. And we are here on a Sunday evening. It's not even a Sunday evening. This is considered Sunday night. It is almost 9 o'clock. It's considered Sunday night. How you doing, Garland?
I like to say that all God's children in the world today, we just need love. We need a little bit more peace. Bro, I'm feeling good. Happy Resurrection Sunday night to people. Hopefully you got some lamb today, some turkey or whatever. You went and celebrated if that's what you do. And it's the culmination of Holy Week for those who celebrate Holy Week as well. But I'm feeling great, man. What about yourself?
Doing well, man. The family came over today. The landlord had to make an appearance today, even though I paid him his money last week. But the landlord made an appearance today. I think at that time, the picture I posted, he had me watching Coco Melon or something. He had me watching. How he come in and just take over the TV and stuff. He
looked like no pictures. Why you taking pictures of me? I'm watching TV.
I had to sneak that one in. Yeah, that picture I had to sneak in. But no, man, all is good. Family came over, like I said. We enjoyed, had a good time. My kids are adults now, so they get to talk shit with their dad, and they love that,
Right.
Yeah, I had a good time. I had a good time all together, you know what I'm saying?
I'm wrong with that. Family is always in order.
Yeah, man, we got some big stuff going on in the world of sports today. Got some news that happened today for our hometown. But, other than that, what we got going on today? What we going to talk about?
Bro, we're going to talk some NBA. We're going to get to some NFL, some big things happening, big signings in Baltimore. Tell them corners we back up. And we're going to do a little closeout with some Come On Yo. And so let's go ahead and just jump into the NBA real quick. Regular season ended today, so the playoffs are set. Play-ins and first rounds. And so for the Eastern Conference play-in, you'll have the 10th seed Chicago Bulls playing the 9th seed Toronto Raptors. The 8th seed Atlanta Hawks will be playing the 7th seed Miami Heat in Miami. Now, the winner of the Bulls-Raptors game will play the loser of the Hawks-Heat game for the 8th seed. In the Western Conference, you have the 10th seed Oklahoma City Thunder. They were playing the 9th seed New Orleans Pelicans. And the number 8 seed Minnesota Timberwolves. They had a little fight on the bench today. Rudy Gobert throwing punches on people and whatnot. They'll be playing your Lakers, the number 7 seed, in the play-in again. And so the winner of the Thunder Pelicans game will play the loser of the T-Wolves Lakers game for the 8th seed. Any just quick, I know you picking Lakers to win the play-in for the West. So what you think about the East?
Well, first of all, let me get back to my Lakers. I thought my Lakers were going to make the actual playoffs, but that Golden State game, I believe it was on Wednesday. I think it was against Phoenix. I can't remember who it was, but they won. And I was like, yeah, that's going to kill us right there. Because I knew my Lakers were going to lose to the Clippers, even though they probably could have won. I knew they were going to lose to the Clippers. And that put my Lakers one game behind and, made the play. But, hey, they made a run for it. So, they almost lost today the way Utah was playing them. And they would have dropped to the 8th seed. So, good thing they won. But in the East, man, so none of the play-in teams really impressed me at all. The Atlanta, I didn't think Atlanta was going to really be able to do anything. I think I pulled Atlanta out of it, but maybe Miami. Give me Miami coming out of the play-in.
Okay.
Yeah, Miami's the only team that I would pay attention to in that.
Yeah, I like Miami coming out with the 7th seed, and I like the Hawks coming out with the 8th seed in the West. I'm going to say, LeBron in the playoffs, the Timberwolves, they played them a week ago, and they pretty much handled them. They didn't have an answer for street clothes for Anthony Davis. And so I think that's a tough matchup for them. We'll see what happens with that, but I think the Lakers can get that. I think this Pelicans Thunder game is real good. I really think the Thunder might get that. The Pelicans, it'd be great if Zion was playing, and we're going to talk about him in a little bit. But I think that, you probably have your Lakers, and I predicted that they were going to come out of they were going to get in the play-in and come out of the play-in. I think they'll get one of the spots, and I definitely think I'm picking the Thunder as a upset. They're the 10th seed. I think they'll get one of the other spots as well. And so, and so in the Eastern Conference, in terms of first round matchups, the Bucks, they'll play the lowest play-in winner, lowest seeded play-in winner. The Celtics will get the highest seeded play-in winner. And then you have the 3-6 matchup, which is the 76ers and the Nets. And you have the Cavaliers and the Knicks in the 4-5 setup. That's a good series, I think. 4-5 Cavaliers really came up this year, 53 wins. Of course, everybody in New York does automatically think the Knicks, just because the Knicks exist, that they're going to get the championship. Bong bong, it's the Knicks. Great pickup over the offseason. They just played very well this year. So who are you looking at in the first round of the East? Any upsets or any matchups you're looking forward to seeing?
Yeah, we talked about this before. It was always that Cleveland Knicks matchup. I think that is going to be an exciting matchup. I actually got Cleveland coming out of there. I think that's going to be an exciting matchup. I got Cleveland winning that. So that's the one I'm really looking forward to. It's more of the next rounds. I'm kind of, with the East, you're kind of looking at to see who's going to match up with one another.
Yeah, I like that Cavaliers-Knicks matchup. I think that's going to be pretty good. I think this 3-6 matchup, the Sixers and the Nets, I had to eat crow on the Nets. I said that after they went ahead and just, got rid of Kyrie and KD, that their season was over. But Jacques Vaughn, he needs to get a lot of credit for what he's done, keeping that team in the playoffs, keeping them at that seed. I think they were like either 5 or 6 when they made that trade, so they didn't really lose any ground. I think they might have enough to give the Sixers some fits. Doc Rivers in the playoffs is always just something about his coach teams. They never go as far as you think they should go, even when he had Simmons and Simmons was playing well from his time when he had the Clippers and when he had the Celtics, when he had the Orlando Magic. There's always something that happens with Doc's teams in the playoffs. And so we'll see if they get out the first round, but I think that's a good matchup as well. I'm looking forward to see. Now, in the Western Conference, we got the Nuggets. They're the number 1 seed. They'll get they'll get the lowest seed from the play-in. And the Grizzlies, number 2, they'll get the highest seed from the play-in. So the 3-6 matchup is the Kings and Warriors, and the 4-5 matchup are the Suns and the Clippers. Any thoughts on those matchups?
Yeah, how about we wanted Warriors Suns? Who didn't want to see Warriors Suns in this first round matchup? That's what we really wanted. But watch out for my Lakers, man. The Lakers can win this first round contest against the Grizzlies. Well, they got to come out of the play-in first. You can't look past anything. But they can win this first round against the Grizzlies, man.
I don't know if they got an answer for Ja Morant. I don't know if they got okay.
Watch
all right.
out.
Ja, they almost Shannon almost had to fight the team out there at crypto.com arena and all that stuff. And I think the Grizzlies won the season series versus them. That Sun Clipper series would be great if Paul George was playing.
Yeah.
It's too bad that he's not going to be playing. And so it's just going to be Kawhi and some other bodies. You never know. Ty Lue is a great coach. Everybody was trying to avoid that Sun matchup because the Suns are just rolling with KD in the lineup. I really think the Warriors can take the Kings. The Kings are just not a great defensive team.
I can see that. Yeah,
I can see them, although the Kings have home court advantage and the Warriors are terrible on the road. We're talking about a transcendent player in Steph. You're talking about Clay can still shoot. They can get on the run. This team, when they get in the playoffs, everyone's healthy. They haven't been defeated. I think
they got Wiggins coming back also.
And they got Wiggins coming back as well. I want to see how they get him back in there and everything works out for him. And so they're definitely a wild card. I think that's a series that I wouldn't necessarily give to the Kings just because they're a higher seed. And so we'll see what happens.
On that one, yeah.
Yeah, I like that. Now let's give out some fanboy regular season awards. The season's ended, and so in terms of an MVP, who would you identify as your MVP this season?
So we've been talking about big boy Jokic, but I might have to slide Embiid up in there. Embiid put them boys on his back. I mean, I'm gonna have to give it to Embiid. Not by much though, but I'm gonna have to give it to Embiid. Now, one person that we always look is, well, we don't always overlook him, but we're overlooking Giannis, and
Giannis had a great
always,
season.
he's always MVP, but I'm gonna have to give it to Joel. Joel is due anyway. If we're talking about an award that's due for someone, it's definitely due for him. He should have had it a couple seasons ago, but I'm gonna give it to Joel this season.
Yeah, I think Djokovic, because of the injuries towards the end of the season, he didn't really finish out the year as he started. Giannis really came on in the second half, but Embiid, like you said, has been playing great all season. He's averaging 33 points, 10 boards per game, and he's led the Sixers to the third seed in a very tough Eastern Conference. I think the Eastern Conference is definitely more tougher this season than the West in some aspects. And he's basically carried them night, putting up 50 burgers on some of the best players in the league. And so I would go along with Embiid as well. Now, for Rookie of the Year, is there anybody that catches your eye that, you might want to throw out there?
And so when you put it out there, to be very honest, I haven't kept up with many of the NBA rookies this year. It wasn't anyone that was a standout, but just looking it over and looking at the stats. Now, this is strictly stats only. I can't give you an eye test on this because, like I said, I haven't paid much attention to any outstanding rookies, but it would be the boy Poncho with
Paolo
Panchero. What I call him, Poncho? Paulo down there in Orlando. Paulo down there in Orlando. And this is strictly stats only.
Deliver my seed.
Man, it's 9:00 Sunday night, man. I gotta go to work tomorrow. I ain't thinking
I'll go with you. Paulo Banchero, he's definitely leading all rookies in scoring. He's second in rebound and assists for the Magic. The Magic didn't necessarily have a great season, but he came out of Duke and he proved him well. It's not a lot of Duke players that come out and blow up the league.
That's true.
He's definitely come out and he's kind of like done a Grant Hill. I think, when you think it's about some great Duke players, outside of Kyrie.
I was about to say, you guys don't forget Kyrie. He gave him one season.
Kyrie played like 2 games for Duke. He didn't play a whole season.
The stats say he played 1 season at Duke. 1 year.
That don't even count. That don't even count. And so Banchero would definitely. Now, Coach of the Year. I'm going to jump out. I'll say Mike Brown, Sacramento Kings. The Kings have been missing the playoffs for decades, and now they have the 3rd seed in the West. They have home court advantage in the first round over Golden State. He basically, they had good pieces there, but you have the other coaches who could not activate it, and sometimes it's the right coach in the right situation. He got De'Aaron Fox. He's got Sabonis playing well. That's my choice for Coach of the Year. Any thoughts on your Coach of the Year?
Mike Brown was definitely my number one also. Now I did hold out a couple votes in my head votes to Missoula down in Boston because, he took a team that after the whole Ime thing, he took a team you never really expected to do much. You thought they would fall apart, but at this point, Brown and Tatum, they're veterans. Marcus, they're veterans. They're not young boys anymore. So you could probably have put anyone in there that just all they had to do was be competent, and these boys would still end up where they were with the number 2 seed. So, it was a little hard for me, but still you got to give them some credit for at least keeping the team grounded and keeping them together because they didn't even fall off after Ime left. It's not like they fell off and then had to come back. They pretty much stayed the course the entire season.
Yeah, it's kind of like the John Harbaugh thing we used to always talk about. He doesn't, well, I won't say he's a great coach, but when they were thriving, sometimes he would not get credit because he had great players. It wasn't too much he had to do when you got a Ray Lewis and an Ed Reed and a Terrell Suggs and all of those people in their primes playing for you. And I think it's the same thing with that coach. like you said, you had these great players.
Right.
They were in the finals last year. You basically just had to roll out the ball, make sure your lineups are straight. You have a lot of times in professional sports, especially at the NBA level, it's about your assistant coaches. And so if you have a great staff, that can really cover a lot of a multitude of sins for a rookie coach. And so, but I do think he did an admirable job there.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in terms of biggest disappointments this season, is there anyone that stood out like a sore thumb for you?
Absolutely. Now, are we talking team or are we talking player?
It could be team or player.
Okay, well, that's good because mine are both Luka and the Dallas Mavericks.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
They
Luka.
picked up Kyrie and they just got worse. And it wasn't Kyrie's fault. Like, they got worse and it wasn't even on Kyrie.
Right.
I really think, and this is and they're actually being investigated for this. But
crazy,
I really think they tanked so they could get the big boy, so they could get the number 1 pick for big boy.
Big French.
But
they want to protect that top 10 pick.
They are the biggest disappointment, player and team for me.
Yeah, I think definitely. I mean, we got to look differently at Mark Cuban. I mean, they didn't get Brunson. They didn't wasn't able to sign Jalen Brunson. He gets to the Knicks. They're kind of struggling. Luka's the only really player you had to worry about. They gave up a lot to get Kyrie. It didn't work when you brought Kyrie in. And then now you're trying to tank. You're like, basically, okay, they're going to play a quarter and then they won't play for the rest of the season.
Exactly.
You should never say those things out loud. You should just go ahead and do it. And so, yeah, now you got to face that. And you never know. You might lose a pick over that. You might lose some money over that. And so, yeah, they're definitely a disappointment. For me, I had to say Zion Williamson,
Okay.
or as I call him, Mr. Glass. Now, when he plays, he dominates, but but he can't stay healthy. Now, he's played in 29 games this season. He averaged 26 points and 7 rebounds. And Calvin, he was shooting 61% from the field. I mean, he was murdering. And then he went out with the hamstring injury in January, and it's being reported he will not return for the play-in tournament. And so you had a Pelicans team who's very good, but you're missing one of your better players, or when he was playing, your best player.
Your best player.
Yeah, imagine if he was playing. I mean, they could be a 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 seed, and now they're in the play-in, and they're playing a tough game in that play-in, and it might be time for the Pelicans to move on. I mean, he's played over 60 games only once in the last 3 seasons. And so, to me, this falls into what I call that too much basketball early syndrome. Because a lot of these guys, they've been playing AAU since they were 10, 12, 13. And they're playing a lot of basketball. By the time that they get to the pros, they're broken up. I mean, Ben Simmons, Chet Holmgren, who was the first-round pick last year, he didn't play. The last couple years, a lot of these first-pick players are not even playing full seasons. I mean, they're coming in already injured up. And I think, you got these guys, they got a lot of knowledge coming on into the pros, as opposed to, although they're leaving college early, they got a lot of miles on them coming into college that freshman year before they get to the pros. And so I think, Zion, he just can't stay healthy.
Zion ain't been the same since his shoe exploded on the nationally televised game that Obama attended, that President Obama attended. He ain't been the same since then.
I think he been eating too much Mothers down in New Orleans, too much etouffee, crab etouffee down there, getting them po' boys, them shrimp po' boys. He just can't. Them hamstrings is really ham. All right, and then finally, man, what's your biggest surprise this season?
Well, you mentioned it by the coach, and we both talked about it. It's definitely the Sacramento Kings. And they're the biggest surprise, and not the fact that they did well, because if you kept up with them last year, you knew that they were actually going to do well, because they did kind of well last year, and they were like, this is brewing. But the fact that they were even at one point the number 2 seed in the playoffs, and they have been consistently good. So in a tough Western Conference, the Sacramento Kings have shined. They are definitely my biggest surprise of the season.
I would say the OKC Thunder. I think, we got to remember, they were in the lottery last year. They had the first pick in the draft in Chet Holmgren, although he did not play this season. And that didn't stop them from making the play-in. Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, he's fourth in the league in scoring with 31 points per game. They got a great young nucleus. I'm wondering where Holmgren is going to fit in next season with them. I mean, because they have some good players that got some time. Hopefully he integrates well and they keep on growing. But this was a team that had a lottery pick last year, and they're in the play-in this year. And so without the player that they selected. And so that's pretty good. And so I see what's going to happen with them in the playoffs. Now let's transition to the NFL. Let's go ahead and talk about some things that's going on in the league. And, there's a new edition of The Wire, and it's going on in Arizona. All right. Way down in the hole. And so, according to Adam Schefter of ESPN, the Arizona Cardinals owner, Michael Bidwell, is accused of gross misconduct, including cheating, discrimination, and harassment, in an arbitration claim filed Tuesday by former Cardinals executive Terry McDonough to NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell. Now, McDonough, he's the son of famous Boston writer Will McDonough, and he's the brother of Sean McDonough, who's been doing play-by-play for centuries. Now, McDonough maintained that both he and former Cardinals head coach Steve Wilkes were left with no choice but to follow Bidwell's plan to use burner phones, like The Wire. I think they must have got it from Stringer, to communicate with former Arizona general manager Steve Keim, while Keim was serving a 5-week suspension after pleading guilty to extreme DUI in Arizona. McDonough said he still has the phone, which he said contains evidence of the cheating scandal, as well as additional documentation. It's also alleged that Bidwell intimidated several female employees who were pregnant at the time, and he fostered an intimidating workplace culture where employees were scared to speak out. Of course, the Cardinals organization denies the allegations. And so, first of all, does this really shock you? And based on what happened with Steve Wilkes and the players' ranking of the team this past season, they were ranked as the second worst team in the league. Remember those rankings that the players did in terms of weight room, food, organization, all those things. And so is this necessarily shocking to you?
So nothing will shock me when it comes to NFL owners. Absolutely nothing. Well, let me back up. What shocks me is if they're actually a good owner and they don't have anything coming out. So if they're not hiding anything, it doesn't shock me. Now, the only thing that I question, so we know Steve Wilkes has already named Bidwell in his case, his discrimination case. What gets me is that, so apparently this happened back in 2017, 2018. Yes. Like, why are you just coming out with this now? Like, what has happened for you to come out right now with it? You know what I mean?
He's claiming that the Cardinals are holding him back from advancement. He wants to be an executive in the league. He's interviewed for some GM jobs, did not get them. And he believes that the Cardinals are kind of like maybe putting out a bad word.
But it takes you 5 years to realize that. You know what I mean? Like the NFL moves like that. I can see a year, I can see maybe 2 years, but we're talking about 2018, 5 years. And honestly, let's even think about this. Like the reason you're saying this is because you apparently, based on what you're bringing out, you got demoted because of not wanting to do the whole burner phone thing. Now, apparently you did it, but you got demoted because you didn't want to do it. So you and Steve Wilkes kind of suffer consequences over it. Right. So Steve Wilkes has come out with his, but again, I don't, if you got demoted for it, it would seem to me that you would start, as soon as you get fired, you would be like, hey, we need to look into this right away. I don't know, I don't know the motivation, but I'm also not saying that it didn't happen. I'm just saying I never understood why people wait and sit on certain things. Like, was there something you and the Cardinals talked about that you wanted to work out and they didn't come through? And then you said, I'm going to, I'd like to know a little more. Maybe it's something like that. It could be nothing, but I just don't understand why people hold on to stuff that's clearly detrimental to you.
Definitely. I mean, he probably should have came out with it a little bit earlier. I mean, it's definitely white privilege games that they're playing with each other.
Exactly.
And so
I was trying to say that without saying that. That's why I said Steve. That's why I said Steve Wilkes came out with his. Like Steve Wilkes came out with his already.
Yeah, there's definitely white privilege games, and we'll see what happens. But I agree with you. I'm not necessarily shocked when you hear things like this. I mean, people are doing these things all the time, and it's probably if he wasn't demoted, Calvin, it's possible we never would have heard of this.
Exactly.
And so, we'll see what happens with them, but it definitely does it cast a negative light on the organization on top of what's happened in terms of the rating from the players and also what happened last offseason with Lil Man and his contract negotiations, them putting in the study clause and making that public and all of these different things. And so it's a lot going on. I wonder how Hollywood Brown feeling out there right now. I know he wanted to get away from Greg Roman, and they sent him somewhere where, it's going to be a nice offense, but it's a lot of stuff going on out in Arizona. And so we'll see what happens with them. Now, your boy Brett Favre, he's still acting like he ain't steal no money, Calvin. Attorneys for retired NFL quarterback Brett Favre argued in a new court filing on Monday that a lawsuit against him seeking to recover misspent welfare money in Mississippi's largest ever corruption case should be dismissed because the State Department of Human Services lacks evidence. This is an attempting to deflect from its own culpability. Now, millions of federal welfare dollars intended to help low-income Mississippi residents, some of the poorest people in the country, were instead squandered on projects supported by wealthy or well-connected people, including projects backed by our boy Favre. Between 2016 and 2019, prosecutors say. No criminal charges have been brought against the NFL Hall of Famer, although other people have pleaded guilty to their part in the misspending. And so do you think Favre will come out of this scot-free, or will he have to do some time in the pokey?
Talk about white privilege games. I mean, come on. Like, right. So when you write this briefing up, when you write this motion up to dismiss it, when they say on what grounds, do you say because we don't like it? Because you can't say because we lack evidence, because you literally had someone that was charged
text message
come out and show the message where you say this isn't going to fall back on me, is it?
Like, look, I know you see my picture, but they were like, look.
Exactly. Like, what are we doing here? Jail time is going to be a stretch for someone with money like that and high profile. Jail time is going to be a stretch. But I don't see this. Whatever's going to happen, I don't see it being dismissed and dropped. If it's just going to be the fine, if it's just going to, it's definitely going to be public. Well, you can't get more humiliated than you've already done right now. So, but it's definitely going to be another black mark on the after football career of the once great, untouchable Brett Favre. Line it up behind his sexual harassment stuff.
Right. Let's not forget about that. I think because it is a state case, it's not federal, and it's in the state of Mississippi, which loves Brett Favre, his home state. Yeah, he might get a fine. He might get off relatively scot-free. He's not going to see the inside of a jail or anything like that.
No jail.
If this was federal, though, I think, he might be, he might have a little bit more issue to work through. But I think because this is a state case right now, he's probably not going to see any major. He might see a fine or something like that, and I'm sure he can probably get his Wrangler money out the bank and just write a check for that.
I would only recommend, and I'm one of them people that let the punishment fit the crime. I would only recommend jail time in this case only because he's so arrogant and so adamant that he didn't do it and didn't do anything wrong. And when they asked him to pay back all the money, remember how are you going to plead not guilty? You gave back the money. It's just the interest that you didn't want to give back.
Right.
Like,
exactly.
How are you trying to dismiss this anyway? But just because
it's like
of his arrogance,
when you don't pay the late charges, look, y'all gonna take the monthly payment. I know I'm late, but I ain't gonna pay y'all these late charges.
But I would only recommend jail time if I were to prosecute. I'd only recommend jail time because of his arrogance. If they said no jail time, I wouldn't be pissed about it. Like, I don't think it deserves jail time, but I definitely think it deserves a public apology and whatever comes with that. I just don't think it deserves jail.
I think it deserves restitution and jail time. I mean, Mississippi is the poorest state in the country, and he took money intended for poor people.
Lock him up.
Lock him up. To build a volleyball stadium for his daughter. If that is not white privilege in all of its glory, I don't know what it is.
I guess you're right.
What it is.
You guess you're right. They lock us up for far less.
Come on now. I mean, we've had black women get arrested for taking their children into a different school district and using an address because they want their child to have a better education. But we have a wealthy white man who wants $3 to build a stadium for his daughter at the local college. And he decides he's going to take this money from the poorest people in the country. So
lock him up.
Lock him up. Lock him up. Lock him up. You know, I know people want to put him with Fauci and want to put him with Pelosi and whoever else. Yeah, lock him up to put them all together. Now, who's going to be the QB for the Ravens this season? Now, with Lamar's Jackson's future uncertain, the Baltimore Ravens must prepare for the possibility of needing to find a starting quarterback for the 2023 season. Now, Jackson could decide to protest the non-exclusive tag and not play for the $32.4 million tender. Without Jackson, the Ravens controlled the contractual rights of two quarterbacks, restricted free agent Tyler Huntley and second-year reserve Anthony Brown. Now, Baltimore, they didn't give Huntley a vote of confidence when the team gave him the right of first refusal tender, which means the Ravens wouldn't receive any compensation for Huntley if he signs an offer sheet and they don't match. That could have applied they could have applied the second-round tender, which would have virtually guaranteed his return. In Huntley's last 5 starts in the regular season, Baltimore struggled offensively, scoring just a total of 5 touchdowns. Snoop was terrible. And so the Ravens, they had the following options, Calvin. They can sign a current free agent, Teddy Bridgewater, Joe Flacco, Matt Ryan, or Cam Newton. They can trade. You've mentioned Trey Lance and Brock Purdy. Or they could sign a player released after the draft. There's rumors that maybe the Titans, they may be eyeing a quarterback in this draft, and they may release Tannehill, who him and the running back take up at least 60% of their cap in Tennessee. And so there's thoughts that maybe they want some cap relief, and they might let go Tannehill after the draft. And so what do you recommend you're the GM, what do you tell DeCosta?
Well, first of all, let's talk about how bold DeCosta has gotten in the past couple weeks. DeCosta is out here flexing his muscle. What he say in the press conference? Oh, hell yeah, we looking for a quarterback in the draft.
People like, oh my God, he's still antagonizing Lamar. Like, what? I mean, do y'all want me to lie?
Listen,
they're not top 31. Of course I am.
You have to, and he tried to clean it up a little. We're always under the mentality that we take the best player available. So we're not necessarily saying we're taking something as a contingency plan, but if there's a quarterback available on our board and he's the best, we're going to take. Like, whatever, Eric. We know what you're saying. Yeah, man, it's been tough. Like I would when you first sent it to me, and for anyone that just wants to get a little inside, we get some topics that we do a little research on before we get
research.
On here.
Read up on it, form
just
your
so
opinion.
we'll have an educated opinion when we talk about it. When you first sent it to me, and I was thinking about it, it was just like, man, I firmly believe Lamar Jackson is going to be Baltimore's quarterback next season. Just because of the franchise tag and the way everything is structured. However, with that being said, you bring up a good point. Just because he's going to be the quarterback doesn't mean he has to actually quarterback. He can sit out for the first 10 weeks of the season. So with that being said, that brings the question, who are you going to get? Huntley, Brown are on the roster, but do you want your team being led by them? You know, I always thought, if nothing else, it would be some sort of free agent they got from the street. I didn't think about Tannehill. I did think about Bridgewater. I barely thought about Joe Flacco. I mean, these are names that you don't want it, but they got to have somebody back there. You know what I mean? And Huntley's not the answer. I mean, Huntley lost us the playoff game. Let's just be real. He lost us the playoff game against the Bengals. So it's really hard. You got Marcus Mariota out there.
I forgot
it's
about
really
him.
hard. Yeah.
You got Carson Wentz out there as well.
Yeah, just now the one thing is, and I guess we'll talk about it soon, because of the latest developments, I have a different opinion about who's going to be the quarterback for the Ravens this coming season. So,
okay, all right. Well, let's go ahead and I think they're going to have to definitely. I don't know if a trade is there. I don't know what assets they have to get. I mean, I don't know if San Francisco signs the offer sheet. You got a quarterback who you were going to start last year before he got injured in Trey Lance. I mean, he beat out Brock Purdy. He was going to start the season. He played the first game and got injured. I mean, he beat out Jimmy G as well. And so obviously you see something in him that says that, yeah, he can compete for the job next year. I think they have to say that because they have to appease at least some of the fan base and some of the players on the team. Like, okay, yeah, this other guy, we made a good little run with him. We at least have to give him a fair shot. And so that's why I think Lynch is saying, okay, yeah, we got to give Brock Purdy a shot. He should get an opportunity to start.
You absolutely don't give him an opportunity if you can get Lamar Jackson. They ain't care what nobody's saying. If they can get Lamar, they don't care what nobody say. If
they can get him, if they do the offer sheet, then great.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's going to have to be a street free agent. I mean, I don't know if I would be mad if Flacco came back here. You know, we won a Super Bowl with Flacco. I mean, I would not be mad if Joe Flacco, if that was a stopgap. I'm serious.
That was 10 years. That was 10, 11 years ago.
I'm still watching it on the DVR.
Yeah,
I wouldn't be mad about Flacco. Was good for the pass interference. He would heave it downfield to Torrey Smith, and Torrey Smith would get his legs would get tied up with the cornerback, and we would get a good 30 yards off of that. Flacco was good for that. I love that about Flacco. I don't know. But they got to do something because there's a strong possibility maybe Lamar sits. And so we'll see what happens. But, hey, Eric DeCosta, he looked around and said, hey, he did a string of bell. Telling the corners we back up. They got some new product, my people. Odell Beckham Jr. is signed to join the Ravens on a 1-year, $15 million deal. So the Ravens made their boldest move of the offseason and delivered perhaps their strongest message to disgruntled quarterback Lamar Jackson by reaching a 1-year agreement with 3-time Pro Bowl wide receiver Odell Beckham Jr. on today, this morning, this early afternoon. The deal is worth up to $18 million and includes $15 million guarantee, the source told ESPN Adam Schefter. The Ravens have been in contact with Beckham since last year and met with him at the annual league meeting 2 weeks ago. Baltimore then struck a deal a day before Beckham was scheduled to meet with the Jets. And Beckham, who's 30, broke the news on Instagram on Sunday night. It's a picture of his son in a Lamar Jackson jersey. And so does this move the needle on the Lamar negotiations?
It absolutely does. So that's why I said now with this latest news, it absolutely does. Number one, the Ravens have a tendency of shutting that shit down the day before you go. They have a history of shutting that shit down the day before you go see another team. You about to go where? Oh, no, no. Back to Sam Adams. If you remember back the first Super Bowl team, Sam Adams was scheduled to take a plane to go see another team. And if I remember correctly, the Ravens shut the charter down. They didn't. They were like, "Oh no, you're gonna have to get your own charter out of here. You one way here." So Sam signed. I mean, that's the rumor. All right, let me. That's the rumor. Let me not put it out there. The Ravens also have a very good track record of taking these veteran wide receivers and giving them second life. Of course, we've talked about Derek Mason, Anquan Bolden, Steve Smith. I mean, giving them second life, not just receiver on the team, but guys that were really good, that remain good, that the Ravens were actually able to keep them in a high profile status. If you're Lamar Jackson, you have to envy this opportunity to throw to one of the best hands in the last 5 or 10 years in the NFL. You have to. But with all of that being said, there's no way I will believe that my Ravens will put the cart before the horse. You have to know that Lamar Jackson is going to quarterback with you if you sign Odell Beckham Jr. You have to know. And Odell has to know that. There's no way Odell is coming to the Ravens and Tyler Huntley or Anthony Brown could be the quarterback. There's no way Odell's going to sign that. I don't care if he was scheduled to meet with the Jets the next day. He had to know today when he signed that Lamar Jackson is going to be the quarterback, whether that means he called Lamar Jackson and said, look, Lamar, I need you. It's 1 year deal. It's a 1 year deal. And after that, you can do what you want, but let's run this year out in Baltimore. We got the defense. We got receivers now. This makes Nelson Aguilar signing look a whole lot better. It makes that signing look better because now he's not your main receiver signing. He can be that third guy because you got Bateman coming back healthy. I mean, you still got Duvernay. This makes the wide receiver court, it has to jump up to at least top 15 in the league. It has to. It has to now. So I really think this changes. So now let me go back to your first question. Who do I think is going to be the quarterback of the Ravens? I think it's Lamar Jackson.
Okay, yeah, I agree with you. If I'm Odell Beckham, I'm not coming to the Ravens to catch passes from Teddy Bridgewater. Exactly. I'm not coming to the Ravens to catch passes from Matt Ryan. I'm not coming to catch passes from Joe Flacco. I'm coming to catch passes from Lamar Jackson. And so that's the only reason why I signed. That's the only reason why I come there. And so, I think it does bode better for them. I guess this takes DeAndre Hopkins out of the mix. Hey, maybe it still keeps him in the mix. Why not? And so, they just upgraded overnight. They just went from not that good to very, very good. Now, all you need to do is get your former MVP in the fold with something long-term, and I think you got a lot to work with. And so I would love to see it. I would love to see it. And hopefully, our theory is true. But I agree with you wholeheartedly. You don't come play for Tyler Huntley, for Snoop. You didn't sign that for Snoop and Anthony Brown.
Exactly.
You signed that because you have a pretty good feeling that they're going to do all they can to get Lamar back. Because this is a show and prove deal.
It is.
You're coming
just
in,
one shot.
Just to get shot, and maybe somebody will give you a 2 or 3 year deal off of this with some bigger money. And so that's what you're coming here to prove, that you still got it.
And it's also a one-shot deal for Lamar. Like, Lamar has to prove himself once again. Now, Lamar may come back with that reluctance of, I don't care what happens this year. I'm not signing with you all again. I'm not playing for the Ravens after this year. So he may come with that attitude, which is fine, but he still has to prove himself this year. Yeah, man, I really think this is Lamar Jackson. Also, don't take DeAndre Hopkins out of the mix right yet. We still got Patrick Queen that they may be dangling in front of somebody. And I think it benefits the Cardinals more than it benefits the Ravens at that point. But you traded Patrick Queen for DeAndre Hopkins. I think that's kind of an even deal for the Cardinals. For us, I think we got depending on what DeAndre Hopkins does and if he signs with us, more years long term. But I think it really helps the Cardinals more. They just lost J.J. Watt. You get Patrick Queen in there. I wouldn't count him out yet.
Okay, all right. You heard it here first on Fanboys. We might know a little something on the inside. You never
You
know.
know, all of the stuff we say eventually. I mean, I'm
What happened last week when I talked about Angel Reese?
just, it always, every time we say something, you hear other people talk about it after that. I'm just saying.
Deion Sanders and his sellout self. Ed Reed.
I'm just saying. And we talked
Oh,
about
man.
the black college coaches going to the HBCUs when we talked about Morgan, and back then with
I
Morgan
talked about Morgan and Ed Reed.
I'm just saying, y'all should listen to us. I'm just saying.
We know what we
we
talking
don't
about,
know
people.
nothing, but we know a lot. Let's just put it
There
that
you
way.
go. I know y'all, but I don't know y'all. We know something. Hey, y'all, we're coming to the end of the show in the segment that everybody loves. Come on, yo. And so I got a little lengthy one. If you don't mind, I'll go ahead and go first.
Yeah, no problem.
Right in. All right. Come on, yo. A tradition like no other. The Masters is not for black people. Now, I want to say congratulations to John Rahm, who came back from being 3 strokes down to win the Masters by 4 shots for his second major in his career. One of the big 4 tournaments, the Masters is probably the most prestigious golf tournament in the United States. Now, despite the level of prestige, the name of the tournament has sparked controversy because the origins from which the name was derived. Now, golf has never been racially diverse, and so we're not trying to act like it is. For many minorities, it's cost prohibitive because it's expensive. I mean, top-of-the-line equipment can cost anywhere from $500 to $700 for clubs, and the greens fees that are charged to play, they can range from as high in the hundreds to private courses to up to $60 or more for public courses for a round. Now, throughout golf's history, the odds have been stacked against minorities, especially African Americans, when integrating into professional golf. The PGA originally had a Caucasian clause which stated that touring players could only be white. There was no integration throughout professional golf until the clause was eliminated in the early 1960s. And except for Tiger Woods, there has been very limited successful African Americans within professional golf because of the racist practices by the PGA. Now, to be more specific, certain events and golf clubs throughout the PGA were built based on historically racist practices that inhibited African Americans from participating. Like, for example, the history of the Masters at Augusta National Golf Club. Now, as stated on the Masters website, America's most prestigious golf tournament, the Masters had a title prior to its current name when it started in 1934, because one of the founders, a man named Cliff Roberts, proposed that the event be called the Masters Tournament. But another founder, famous golfer Bobby Jones, he resisted because he was afraid that the name would not be appropriate given the relation to slavery surrounding the course in Augusta, Georgia. As a result, the name Augusta National Invitation Tournament was used for several years, and therefore the original founders of the Augusta National, they most likely knew that the title, the Masters, posed a concern in a connection to slavery, considering one of the original founders second-guessed naming the tournament the Masters. Now, prior to 1975, when most African Americans at the Masters worked as caddies or club staff, until Lee Elder became the first black man to play the tournament. Augusta National did not allow membership to African Americans until 1990. Now, many people today don't know that using the word master for specific titles such as golf tournaments or master bedroom, you hear that a lot if you're buying a house, it can have a negative connotation, implying a connection with slavery. The name signifies master in relation to master of enslaved people. And it's clear that the Masters Golf Tournament needs to change its name. So come on, yo, let's change this name. I know I got a Masters hat on, and I wore it on purpose because you can only get this gear when you go to the Masters Tournament. They don't sell it online. And I have a cousin. As a matter of fact, he went to the Masters this year. Hopefully, he grabbed me some swag. But you know, when we think about this, as a matter of fact, I work in community development. And one of the things our developers do when they talk, they name the bedrooms, they stop using the word master bedroom just because of the connection to slavery. And so I want to challenge the Masters. Let's change the name because of that connection to an awful past. So come on, yo. No more Masters.
They will never, ever, ever change that name.
A tradition like no other.
Like no other. What's that? What is that in Augusta? What is that in Augusta? What's it called? Augusta National?
It's in Augusta, Georgia.
Is it
Augusta
called
National Golf
Augusta
Club.
National? Yeah. Maybe they can change it to the Augusta National. If they change the name of that, do you know how many of these?
National.
You know how many of these men will lose their minds?
They will lose that. I mean,
gosh.
Hey, people were fighting on the Redskins and they would lose their stuff over this. But hey, let's put some corporate pressure on them. Come on, it's legit, but I know it'll never change.
I agree with you. This was actually this Masters was supposed to be the one where the live guys and the PGA guys were supposed to be clashing. I didn't hear.
As a matter of fact, Rahm came back on a live guy.
Okay.
Rich Koepka.
I was about to say I didn't hear any tension news. They tried to build up some stuff.
Yeah, they tried to build up some stuff.
Yeah, the only thing.
If Brooks Koepka would have won today, the PGA would have lost this month.
The only thing I got out of the Masters this year was that Tiger didn't do too well. Tiger might be it for Tiger.
Tiger might need to go to the booth.
Yeah, it might be it for him. And that the trees fell down and didn't hurt anybody. I've seen the trees falling.
The tree actually fell. Someone was in the middle of both tree limbs. It fell over top of them.
No, how did no one get hurt?
And no one got hurt.
No one get hurt. Like, wow. And it's true because they showed it. They showed the tree.
And they showed it.
Yeah, they showed it. This is not hearsay. They showed
the person was eating a pimento cheese sandwich that they sell at the Masters. Like, what's going on?
It was like, probably looked and waited out, was like, well, let me just stand here. Probably not even paying attention.
I would have left Augusta National and went straight to a 7-Eleven and brought a lottery ticket, the big game ticket, because if 2 big pines miss me like that, I mean, I'm about to hit lotto. I would have immediately left and went and played the big game.
I agree with that. Hey man, let me get mine in real quick. And we've talked about this, but I wanted to bring this back up because last year, right around this time on social media, I had this not debate, but kind of a back and forth with a couple people. So last year, Maryland, who didn't make it out of the Sweet 16, the Maryland women who didn't make it out of the Sweet 16, they lost Awansu, and they lost, of course, the biggest recruit, Angel Reese, who was their number one recruit. And of course, Angel Reese goes on to win the national championship with LSU. With that being said, there were a couple people like, this transfer portal is terrible, and now the Maryland women, they lost the 2 best players and they're not going to be any good. And this is terrible. And I had to remind them, at one point we lost Dee Brown's daughter. I can't remember her first name.
Yeah, I remember. She was good.
But she was good, and she decided to go to Duke. She transferred out. We lost Slocum, Destiny Slocum. If you recall, Destiny Slocum was amazing, and we lost her. She transferred to Arizona State, and another top recruit. And what I said when he said that, I was like, listen, Brenda Freeze is probably one of the premier coaches in the game. Give her a chance before we start selling them out because of this transfer portal. And all I heard was, no, we won't be able to recover from this. And I brought up Destiny Slocum, and I brought up Dee Brown's daughter, and they were like, Lexi Brown. No, we won't be able to recover from this one. Well, not only did Maryland recover, they actually made it to the Elite 8, which they have not done, I believe, in the last 5 or 6 seasons. Yes. Brenda Freeze, and I've talked about this before, and I will repeat it again. Gary Williams is the guy at the University of Maryland for the basketball program. Brenda Freeze is arguably the best basketball coach Maryland has ever had, men or women. Yes.
Just better than Gary Williams.
Just listen to this. Just listen to it. Now, remember, both of them had just won one championship. Okay. Both of them have only won one. Just listen to this.
Better than Lefty.
Definitely better than Lefty.
Okay.
Definitely better than Lefty.
I'm listening. I want to hear this.
Let me just give you Brenda Freeze's. I'm just going to give you Brenda Freeze's stats. I'm going to break a few down, and then I'm going to give you her overall.
Okay.
When Maryland was in the ACC and Brenda Freeze took over, because she took over in 2002 and only had 10 wins that season, she ended up her ACC career with Maryland at a 306 wins, 101 losses. That's 752. That's a 752 percentage.
1%. Okay.
Let's just go to the Big Ten. So now they move to the Big Ten. The Maryland girls, 255 wins and 44 losses, 853 winning percentage. Overall at Maryland, Brenda Freeze is 563 and 146. She has a 794 win percentage. Brenda Freeze is arguably the best basketball coach the University of Maryland has ever had. And she does it with women that are not big names. She loses the big name for whatever reason. She loses them, but she always keeps these girls in contention. Now, she only has one title, but I'm not comparing her to Pat Summitt. I'm not comparing her to the girl that just won that I don't like. The LSU's coach. Yeah, I'm not comparing her to Mo. I'm comparing her to the coaches at Maryland. Now, if you want to compare her nationally in the women's sport, she has to be top 10 easily, top 5 arguably. I mean, we're not giving Brenda Freeze enough credit. I don't think we give Brenda Freeze enough credit at all, nationally, not even locally. Brenda Freeze deserves her flowers. Brenda Freeze is a great coach. And come on, yo, stop sleeping on Brenda. Brenda's doing it up. Come on, yo. Brenda takes these girls and
I'm gonna say this. Now I'll say this about Lefty, because I grew up in the Lefty era. Lefty was the best recruiter that Maryland ever had.
Okay.
Lefty recruited Albert King, Buck Williams. He had Moses Malone. Moses Malone got poached to go to the pros. He had so many players, but he couldn't coach his way out of a wet paper bag. He never made. I think he only made one Elite Eight. He never made a Final Four. And even with Lim Bias, Adrian Branch, Buck Williams, all those players, he never made a Sweet 16. I think Gary, I'm pushed back on you. I think Gary is the best coach Maryland's ever.
I can accept
Gary
Williams
took
argument.
a whole bunch of nobodies, and he won a lot of games.
I can accept a Gary Williams argument. I can accept the Gary Williams argument. I can't accept the Lefty argument, but I can accept. I
wouldn't say Lefty. No, and like I said, I think Lefty was the greatest recruiter that school ever had. Lefty was getting top 5, top 10 players. He just couldn't coach them. If Dean Smith had the teams that Lefty had in Lefty's heyday, Dean Smith would have been like John Wooden. He would have won probably 5, 6, 10, 12 straight. Lefty couldn't coach, but he could recruit. He could get the best players. He just couldn't coach. But I think Gary, he wasn't the greatest recruiter, but he was a great coach.
Gary didn't like recruiting. I mean, that was widely known. Now, what I will say, if there's going to be a knock against Gary, now Gary's going to get an ACC pass because you're going up against Krzyzewski and you're going up against Dean Smith most of your career. So you're going to get a pass. And every one of your ACC tournaments is always going to be a road game for you because you're always in North Carolina. You're never at Maryland hosting it. But Gary also had, he won with Steve Blake, Juan Dixon, Lonnie Baxter, Chris Wilcox.
Yeah.
But you had Steve Francis, who was a number 2 overall pick. Yeah. You had a Joe Smith, who was out of nowhere. Keith Booth was supposed to be the man on that team,
right?
But Joe Smith came out of nowhere. And, you had, even though, you may have done less, there were teams where you've had some players that were nationally recognized.
Yeah. That one year that Steve Francis was there, they were really stacked to the gills. And to me, that was too many players for Gary. That was too many good players. Gary needs maybe 1 or 2 good players, and then the rest have got to be role guys, because he just couldn't. That was too many good players on that one team.
Brenda has never really had those nationally recognized players. Now, she's had a few. She's had a few, but she's had a lot of girls that became nationally recognized after they joined the program.
Sure.
Angel Reese was probably her biggest recruit ever.
Definitely.
And then she
I think she lost Reese because of NIL, not necessarily because they were internal issues. Okay. I think it was the NIL money that was the temptation to go ahead and leave. But she's definitely in the Mount Rushmore of basketball coaches.
She has to be. So come on, that's my thing. Come on, y'all need to stop sleeping on Brenda. We have something in our backyard that could rival any other women's college basketball team right now, when women's college basketball is about to blow up even more, especially after this tournament. Now, Brenda Frese is going to have to contend with Dawn Staley, and they did play earlier this season in Maryland and they lost. So she's not the best. And another thing, Dawn Staley is always going to get top recruits.
Caitlin's in the Big Ten.
Caitlin's in the Big Ten. The girl, Holly, what's the girl from Louisville?
She's transferring.
She's transferring, and you don't know where she's going to go. If she winds up in Iowa, Maryland is in trouble. Now remember, Maryland did beat Iowa this year. They did beat Caitlin this season.
Mm-hmm.
They lost to her twice, but they played them 3 times, once in the Big Ten tournament. They lost to her twice, but they did beat them once. Indiana was the number 1 seed coming out of the Big Ten. So they still got to contend with that. But Brenda's always there, man. She's always there.
She is.
Always there. So come on, yo. Start putting some respect on Brenda Frese's name, y'all. Y'all don't see it. Y'all don't give us enough credit. Y'all don't give her enough credit. I think Brenda Frese is one of the best out there. So that's my little thing. Hey man, for a Sunday night show, we this was pretty good.
We ain't gotta go to work tomorrow.
Yeah, we rolled through. I got to edit this month and still trying to wait to get to work. I would say I'm gonna call out, but see, then I'm on record saying that I'm a call out. Damn, I messed that up.
Al, you ain't hear that, Al. I know Al will listen.
I'm gonna edit this joint out real quick. Hey man, make sure you join us next week.
Coach is going to be in tomorrow.
It may be Wednesday, but we do have to talk about 2 episodes of Snowfall. Yeah, we may have to wait another week because somebody is celebrating a milestone anniversary. So
31 years.
Yeah, man.
Give it up for your boy.
31 years. Listen,
31 years.
I'm blessed to find a woman that wanted to stay with me 31 days, and Garland had one by his side 31 years.
31 years.
Matter of fact, you know what? Forget that. Come on, yo, about Brenda Frese. Paula deserves her flowers, y'all.
She's on the Mount Rushmore of wives. She's the only one up there.
Paula deserves her flowers, man. I mean, she'd have been with this dude 31 years. Woo.
Yeah. I heard us singing the other day. It's cheaper to keep them. So cheaper to keep them.
Hey, man, make sure y'all listen, rate us, review us, tell your friends. We are on all of the podcast platforms. You can hear us there. And then when we do our broadcast, you can see us on Facebook. You can see us on Twitter. You can see us on YouTube. This podcast is also live on YouTube. So as we're recording it, if you do get a chance, you can watch it on YouTube as we're recording it, or you can go back and watch it. It'll be up there for the taking. So thank you again for joining us. Garland, got anything you want to say to the people before I play this outro music?
Hey, and shout out to Calvin, too. He was in the Baltimore Banner last week, talking a little bit Lamar and Lamar's mom and all. So go look that up. A nice little article about momagers. And Calvin had a couple quotes up in that mug. So
thank you to Leslie Streeter, friend of the broadcast and the podcast, also a schoolmate of mine at City Forever. That was her article. She does a lot of lifestyle articles, not just sports articles. This just happened to be one of the topics she wanted to talk about a mom being the manager of a superstar NFL athlete. So make sure you check that out. That came out last Monday. So if you wanted to look it up, it came out Monday. It's called Being a Momager or something of that effect.
Something like that. So it's on our Facebook page. So definitely go check it out.
Absolutely. Hey, let me play this outro music, and we definitely thank you all for joining us. This is All Things Black presents Fanboys.
You have been listening to Fanboys and All Things Black with Garland and Calvin.
Yeah, I played a little early. I was trying
Thank you for listening.
Anyway, I'm Calvin. He's Garland. We'll talk to y'all later.
All of your podcast platforms. It's late, y'all.
Later, Garland.